one team that's already been eliminated, the Seattle Mariners. But
they were eliminated at the start of the year, according to the GM.
It's not their fault.
According to the GM.
Oh, I was going nuts last night when I saw this. Let's bring in our friend, beat writer for the Seattle Times, Ryan Divish. Oh, Ryan, I got to be real with Ryan. I didn't think that we were going to have a conversation on October 4th. I didn't. I'm like, all right, we'll talk to Divish again in the offseason. We'll invite him back and have a good time and dissect the Mariners offseason, see if they're going to get the payroll back to, the good old days from 2016 to 2019. Do we have Dipoto to run first before we say hello to him? Yeah, okay. Before we even get a Ryan comment, because we know it's going to be great, he said that they're focusing on winning the World Series, could have left the Mariners, quote, stuck in the mud. We're actually doing the fan base a favor in asking for their patience to win the World Series. There was also, we're not going to run it, I don't think, but there was like a 2-minute conversation about this magical number called 54%. And if you twice removed, look at each season, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just summing it up for everyone so that they don't get headaches. Okay, now you go. Your thoughts on how that went yesterday, and were you there?
Yeah, I was there. I'm trying to find like the level of discomfort or uncomfortableness that was apparent. Like, I know the guys in the PR staff, and I wish they had like a blood pressure monitor on them. But like from the moment, and honestly, I didn't expect like a mea culpa about like we messed this up or we got to. It's just not how Jerry thinks, not how those guys think. But like, it was bad from the start, and it never got better. I know Jerry is very verbose and very well spoken, and he can talk about a lot of things, and he explains a lot of things in their thinking. But on that day, nobody wants to know how smart you are. Nobody wants to know all the things you did right. All they want to know is what you did wrong, admit you did wrong, and how are you going to fix it. Those are the first 3 things that should have come out of their mouth. I mean, like in his opening statement, he called the season a step forward. Well, nobody wants to hear that. This is a team that talked about, right or wrong, that believed they could win the American League West. And for a while, they actually led the American League West. And then they fail. They don't make the team. Like, that's not ideal. They don't, you have failed. If your stated goal is to return to the postseason and win the division, and you don't get there, you have failed. So that's not a step forward. Whether you believe it or not, whether you believe that your players have gotten better, whether you believe that like everything that you still believe in is on track, that is not a step forward. You have failed. And you have to say it. I mean, and it's just because it's the perception of it all. Like, fans don't want to hear this when you come up short, and they can look at all these different reasons why. And yeah, so I mean, like, it started bad, and then it just got worse and weird. And I didn't, like, honestly, somebody's like, aren't you gonna like, crush them for the things they said? I go, I don't have to. They're getting crushed with just what they said. I don't have to. Like, it doesn't take me to come out and say, hey, that's really bad. That doesn't make any sense. Like, that the fan base is going insane. I mean, you want to talk about a day for sports talk radio in Seattle? It was this day and the day after they beat the Russell Wilson last year in football. This is like the best day for sports talk radio because they can just play those clips over and over. Like, you want sound bites to come from these things, but not those sound bites. The 54% games over 10 years. The fans should be thankful that they've been patient in how they're trying to win the World Series. Those just are not what you want, as Joe Girardi likes to say all the time. It's not what you want. That whole session was not what you want.
Ryan, first of all, go Hawks, as a Seahawks apologist. And then second of all, there's an old saying in baseball, you win 60, you lose 60. It's what you do with the other 42 that kind of makes your year, right? So I think that's what Jerry Dipoto was kind of saying, but he just didn't say it the right way. And then for him to go and just say, well, we're trying to win the World Series, but, we're doing you a favor because when was the last time the Mariners won a World Series?
They've never even been to a World Series.
Oh, that's right. So the fan base, just be more patient because, 40 plus years isn't enough, right? 50 years isn't enough. Like we just keep waiting and waiting and waiting. And so that is where I think he just completely missed the feeling in the room, the temperature of the room, and of the fan base. The fan base last year went to the postseason. And they have great fans in Seattle, even when they're terrible. They're at T-Mobile Park, Safeco, whatever you want to call it, every night, yelling, screaming, bad weather, good weather, right? They just want to get to a World Series and have the opportunity to win it. They got to the playoffs last year, had a great series against Houston, right? I mean, had a chance to win it, lose, come back this year. They're like, oh, this is our year, blah, 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 blah. And then, oh, but 54%. We go into the season thinking we're going to win 54% of the games or whatever. I mean, it's just a brutal way to approach your fan base.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. Larry Stone, our columnist, just kind of wrote like there was a disconnect. There's a disconnect between how Jerry views the job they've done and the performance they've had versus what fans expect or whatever. And granted, you can't live your life trying to do what fans want, but you have to be able to admit that when you failed and by number, by everything, by plan, that you know you have to have some level of regret to it, and there was none. And I mean, and I wrote that too. Like the people that were expecting like an apology or a regret for all the things they did, or some promise that they were going to do so much to fix it. That's just not how these guys operate. Yeah, and for the fans, like they had over 35,000 for every game for their last 15 or 20 home games. I mean, they're going to be at 2.7 million for fan attendance at home attendance, which is going to be, I think, the highest since like 90 or since 2003. They're making a ton of money off the fan base, and you failed. I'm sorry, like that's there's nothing more you can say. Like the 54% thing was crazy. So he was talking about like at least, and I'm trying to understand it because I had to go back and read it and then talk with some people. So like he was talking over a 10-year period. If you win 54% of your games, you will make the World Series in one of those 10 years because the numbers say they even out. Like you'll win 90 one year and 82 one year, but if you average out to 54%, but people don't want to think 10 years down the road or a 10-year period when you've never made the World Series. They think about now. How did you screw up now? How did you fuck it up now? That's what they care about. They don't care about the rest. And I think that's the biggest problem is that they don't understand how angry this fan base is. Larry Stone, our columnist, wrote about the fan base calling this team was like one of the most unlikable teams that the Mariners have had in the last few years is because how they played, how they started, how they struggled. Fans didn't expect that and they didn't like it, and it's just like you have to be able to read the room a little bit better. I always kind of joke like, nobody liked the smartest kid in class. And usually it's because they were so busy telling you how smart they were. And I mean, like, I don't know that Jerry thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, but I do think that he believes if he explains it or they're thinking and he can tell fans their process that will be okay. And that's not okay because fans don't measure the process. They don't, it's not about process. It's about results. Service says it all the time. It's a results-based game, and the results were a failure on every level because you didn't meet the goal. But the goal is to the postseason win the World Series. They met neither of those goals.
He's not the smartest. He might be the smartest in the room, but the reason you can say those things is because he's the most comfortable. Like, why is there no hot seat? This guy's got to win. If his goal is to win 87 games, which I'm assuming that's my math, out of 162, 54% is win 87 games average. He needs to win 204 games in the next 2 seasons to reach his goal. Why is this guy not on the hot seat for making all his little like, oh, I'll trade you 3 Lego men for your 4 Lego men, and now I have 4 Lego men before. He's a fantasy football trader. And now he comes out and says this stuff to a fan base that is ravenous for winning.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think there is a level of invincibility for those guys because they ended the playoff drought. But all you've done is raise the bar. You have to do more. You can't just sit there and say, "Oh yeah, we did this," and be happy with it. I'm very curious. We didn't have, John Stanton, the Mariners chairman or managing partner, was in the room, but he didn't get on the podium to speak. He probably should. I think a large reason why Jerry is operating kind of with some of the moves he's made is because of a lack of investment into their payroll. which is absurd considering how much money they make as an organization. Um, yeah, it just everything felt detached and like I wouldn't say, I had some guys text me, oh, he's coming off smug or smarmy or condescending. It just felt like you were being lectured more than you were answering questions. And that's just not a good way to be. I mean, like, and, somebody was like, well, it's not a true leader. A true leader admits what's wrong. Yeah, I guess. I mean, to me, the true leader is well, everybody knows what was wrong with this team. How do you fix it? And they didn't even offer plans like that. And obviously, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, the comments made by Cal Raleigh and then the players like J.P. Crawford, Logan Gilbert, Ty France backing him on it pushed them into a corner. So I think they came out prepared to kind of offset what those guys had said.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go. This, in my mind, it's actually spiraled out of control and would have gotten so much more coverage if this conversation occurred in a month from now. It just happens to be, the MLB postseason. But Cal Raleigh's comments and then his clarification, which still was very firm that he's not calling out his current team. He's calling out the front office and ownership and all of that. And then, like you said, teammates coming around him and inform us on what they've been saying as well. To me, that's where you get like this arrogant rebuttal yesterday. So what a freaking mess. And I can only imagine what kind of conversations are going on behind the scenes right now with everyone.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fun day to be over at T-Mobile Park working. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, Cal did force them into a little bit of a corner with his comments, and I I don't believe that he was forced to apologize. I think he wanted to apologize because he felt like the comments about Seawald mostly were kind of like taking shots at Dominic Canzone and Josh Rojas, and he didn't want that. Yeah, there has been a disconnect with the Mariners front office and ownership long before this season. I wrote about Kyle Seager and Dipoto not talking for years. You know, we've heard comments from Mitch Haniger. He wrote that whole piece, and there is a disconnect from older players that are here that get established here, and they see that it's not going to change. Like the promises made aren't promises kept sometimes, and so I think that's the problem. They want to win. I think they were very underwhelmed by what they did in the offseason, and I think they felt like they could have added somebody like Rojas without giving up Seawald. And so it's like, yeah, every year, you have conversations privately with these guys, and you just hear the grumbling. It's been building for years and years and years, and we've talked about it before, but it's a commitment to winning, and winning takes risks, and winning is, sometimes you have to put it out there financially, commitment wise years, and this team is risk averse. They just don't want to do it. So how do you fix it? Like you look at this team now, it's a pretty good team. Like they have really great pitching, but they're pieces away. They'll lose to Oscar Hernandez. Like how do they fix it? Because it's a bad free agent class, and they're going to have the same problems next year. Because right now, as it's constructed, we know that it's not good enough to win a division. You lose a few guys. So I just, it's so weird. Like every year, I've been covering this team since 2007 or 6, and every year it's something. It's never about baseball either. Sometimes it's crazy.
Okay, Ryan. So I'm going to dispute what you said about Cal Raleigh. I was told that he was forced by somebody to make the apology, and I'm not going to say who it was, obviously, who told me, but or who I heard this from multiple people, and then also who told him to apologize. But you're a reporter. You can probably put 2 and 2 together and figure out who told Cal Raleigh to apologize. Now, did they also do that to George Kirby after he came out and said, well, I threw 90 pitches and I shouldn't have been out there? And then he got destroyed by everybody all over the
Yeah,
place? I mean, was
yeah. I
was he
think
also told to apologize?
yeah. I don't know how it works with that. I do think that like Jared and George, when Kellenick kicked the water cooler and broke his foot, I feel like Jared and George were encouraged to go out and make a statement. Like I heard Raleigh, like he wanted to say something, and I think Cal wanted to say something. I don't know if he wanted to do it through the
I heard
media.
he was forcibly scolded to go make an apology.
Yeah, I think he was told to apologize to his teammates. I know that. But
Okay.
like, why would like if you're the Mariners, and then again, this is not reading the room properly, like Scott and Jerry, whoever. If you're the Mariners, if Cal wants to apologize to his teammates, just have him go do it in the clubhouse, because it's a hell of a lot more meaningful there than going out and doing it in front of us. Because the perception was then that he was forced to apologize, no matter whether or not he said he didn't or whatever. Everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, he was forced to apologize," and it's just another kind of shot at like how this organization is run. Um, I don't think he had anything to apologize for. I didn't think he trashed his teammates. I didn't, it's fair to be critical of the organization because the organization deserves criticism. They, you know, and whether it's DePoto's philosophies or John Stan and the ownership group not green lighting enough payroll, regardless of how you get there, the results are still the results. You didn't have enough talent and you didn't win. And what they thought was going to be a rebuild that would also coincide with the Astros falling down and not really taking into consideration what the Rangers were doing. It's not the same spot. They're not the same landscape they expected or predicted when they started this. The Rangers have moved up. Houston hasn't fallen back like they thought, and they're still kind of a middling team that has to play almost perfect baseball to win 90 games. And we saw that this year they couldn't do it.
Ryan, all you hear about all year with the Mariners going into the year was Julio Rodriguez. Now, he had a great second half, okay? And kind of got when he went, the Mariners went. But everything you heard from people around the organization was J.P. Crawford is the MVP. J.P. Crawford, not Julio Rodriguez. Is there something going on that we're missing here? Why would they say J.P. Crawford when Julio Rodriguez clearly not only is the face of the Mariners, heck, you could put him up there with the face of Major League Baseball as much as he's on commercials and everything. So are we missing something with what Julio brings into the locker room every day?
No, I don't think so. I just think that from the start of the season, really, until the end of it, JP was probably their most consistent guy. And you look at some of his clutch numbers and stuff, like he hit like 670 with runners and with bases loaded this year. In the biggest moments, JP kind of came up big, and there were large stretches of the year, like we talked about it earlier in the year. Julio struggled the first couple of months. He was swinging at everything. He was trying to hit the ball 500 feet all the time. Got out of his plan, got out of his approach. The production wasn't there. I mean, like if you look at Julio's production, 60% of it came in July and August. Like this last homestand, he was 1 for 23 on the homestand. That's pretty tough road there. So I think that's why JP has got the MVP stuff, the defense, the leadership, plus the hitting this year. He was a homer short of 20 home runs. He had actually I think finished with a higher OPS than Julio did this year, and so that's I think why. I mean, I don't think it's a slight at Julio. It's just that JP had probably the best offensive season of his career, and they really feel like he's figured some stuff out and took a step forward too in the leadership department as well. Holding guys accountable, doing stuff out of his comfort zone. He has never been that guy that's been vocal about things, but this year, he stepped up. I know after the season ended, he just stepped up and he said, "Look, I went to Driveline in Kent. I did all this stuff. I put in more work than I ever did this offseason, and this is what happened." He says, "We all have to do the same. Like, this isn't good enough. We shouldn't be standing here right now. So everybody has to look in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to get better? And you need to do it." He goes, "Because there's no reason we're not playing." And I mean, that's something, that he could have never done 2 years ago. And he's doing it now. I think that's another part of the value that they're talking about. It's just how much he's holding others accountable.
Did you guys go over Otani with DePoto and get any hints there? Because the main problem I have is the payroll not being what it used to be. And I'm looking at either the glass half full or the glass super half empty. Is this team doesn't spend like that anymore. So maybe they're not going to be able to compete with, a Dodger offer that's like 600 mil. Or there's some hope here in my brain going, maybe their payroll was like 16th or something this year because they were waiting to try and throw the bag at Otani.
Yeah, he can't talk about it technically because he's not, the World Series isn't over. he wouldn't even give us a thought on what they do on the qualifying offer with Teo. Um, I mean, I don't know that the Mariners would go 600 million or 500 million. I think they go 400 million. I think they would do it that way. Like they'll give him 50 million a year for, 6 years, and they'll give him the opt out that maybe other teams won't. They'll give him the opt out after 3. They should. They should do whatever it takes. That's the best free agent hitter on the market. You lack a free agent. You lack pop. You lack. They have a DH spot open. I mean, I don't know that. Mike Ford can't be supplanted as the DH. I mean, they should do it because this is a bad free agent class in terms of hitters, and that's the best one. And $15 million a year, Shohei Otani pays for that. He pays for that in your revenues and your advertising and everything else. You'll make the money back off it if you get Shohei Otani. I don't know whether they'll get him or not. I still think he'll go to the Dodgers. I think they'll make a really good offer, but all I know is I hope Shohei signs quick so I don't have to deal with it all off season. Sign it quick. Do it by like November 10th so we can all move on with our lives. And I'm sure the rest of the free agents in the class would too, because like if you're Teoscar or Matt Chapman or whoever, the few other hitters, the sooner Shohei signs, the sooner other teams can adjust and look and say, okay, here's how do we fix these holes.
All right, this is kind of a two-part question. Who is to blame if the Mariners don't make it to blank? If they don't make it to what level of the postseason next year?
Yeah, I mean, I would blame it on ownership in the front office if they don't make it next year.
To where?
They're going to have because the ball is in their court. You have good pieces. Like you always talk about being strong up the middle. You have a switch hitting catcher that hit 30 bombs and threw out 14 of the last 16 runners he saw, including Ellie De La Cruz and the low kid from Tampa and Estuary Ruiz. So you have a switch hitting catcher, hits 30 bombs. You have a shortstop that just hit 19 homers, solid defensively. Your team leader had a 780 OPS. You have a center fielder who is a superstar, an absolute superstar that will get better, who had 30 home runs or over 30-30 this year. So you're strong up the middle. You have a starting rotation with Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. You have 2 rookies in Bryce Miller and Brian Wu. Plus, you still have Robbie Ray coming back by, they hope, August. You have Marco Gonzalez. You still have some more in the tank. I mean, like, and then you have Andres Munoz and Matt Brash at the bullpen. You have all the pieces. It's the periphery. Like, if Suarez is even decent, or if you bring Ty France back, if they're even decent, it's how do you make the rest of it better, and how do you supplement it? And that's not on the player's performance. That's go out and get some dudes. It can't be like complementary pieces that you say, okay, well, if we platoon this guy on this day and we do this and this day, no, get some real dudes that play every day, that you can put in a lineup every single day. And you're not trying to have to mess with every platoon and every little situation. Get real guys. And yeah, maybe they're not out there in the free agent market. You do have some prospects. Find a way. That's the discipline that front office has to show, and the ownership has to be a little afraid to take risks. They can't be afraid to take risks. You have to be able to spend money to get to where you want. I mean, I'm not saying that the highest payroll wins, but the Mariners don't ever flirt with the highest payroll. They don't even flirt with the 10th highest payroll anymore. And I just think they're lacking. They were lacking from the start, and everybody knew that they were a bat or two short. They thought they could piece it together and maybe get better at the deadline. They didn't do that either. So no, to me, it's on ownership and Dipoto to provide more talent for this team to even get and win a division title. Like that's their next goal, is to win the division. You look at them, do you think realistically they're better than the Rangers or the Astros, that much significantly better? I don't see it right now, because the Astros first 6 guys can really hit. The Rangers first 7 guys really hit. The Mariners first 2 guys really hit. That's a
problem. Thank you, AJ. Remember we were going over their friggin' lineup the other day.
Cal Raleigh, though, he's 4th. He is pretty good.
Cal Raleigh should be hitting lower in the lineup, though. I think Cal even was kind of saying that. So we got to jump. But Ryan, that was awesome. We definitely needed a little therapy session there, and this is a make or break off season in my mind. So we'll chat again in a month unless they say anything else stupid.
Yeah, I'm hoping that like they don't have any more major press conferences, so I can just, hide off into Montana and not be heard from for a while.
I want you to relax, dude. But they've got to shut up, I guess. And I don't think Otani's signing in early November, unfortunately, for you. Maybe
Damn
late
it.
November. Yeah,
Okay, I'll take
close
November.
to Thanksgiving. Okay.
All right. See you guys.
See you, Ryan. Good to see you, dude. Thank you. Appreciate it. What do you got there, AJ?
Just the old ball.